Hi, Professor Mason.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Who is this?
My name is Vanessa Sanders. I'm one of the organizers.
Oh, hi, Vanessa.
I just wanted to ask you one quick question. Thank
Yes.
you for coming and participating in our week.
Yes, of
Um,
course.
I just wanted to make sure that you were okay with us recording the
Yes, that's
webinar.
fine.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Do you have any questions? Do you need
I
any?
don't. So how many people are going to be on this panel?
Like on the panelists, there's 4 panelists.
Okay, and you sent us a list of questions. Are we just going through these questions? Is there going to be audience? What's the format?
So there's an audience. Do you know Charles Brown? Charles Brown, he's also one of our organizers. He's actually going to be hosting. I'm just kind of doing the behind the scenes tech, but he's going to be hosting. So I think he's actually going to be giving you guys the questions.
Okay.
And then if there are questions from the audience, I'll feed them to him.
Okay. And how big have your audiences been for this or for these?
They've varied, but we've had for the panels like between like around 30 participants.
Okay.
There's 50 people signed up for this one, so.
And this is really looking from the professor perspective. I mean, I've had people come to me and say like they never have people talk about your early faculty and postdocs and stuff. Is that what you're thinking about from here also?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So yeah, so everybody else should be jumping on. I just wanted, since you were here, I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, I was just going through the questions. I thought I have to admit the last 2 talks I've given, I was working on the talks or other things, and I was just sitting here, and I ended up coming on like almost late, not exactly late, but like I couldn't find the link and I couldn't find, so I was like, okay, let me be smart and just join.
Yeah.
And I can do my other work.
Right.
So I'm learning. It's taken 6 months of Zoom, but I'm learning.
It's a challenge, right? It's like every time you're like, I got it this time, and it's like, nope, something happens.
So where are you right now? Where are you based?
Oh, I am at Brookhaven National Lab. I'm an assistant
scientist. Are you a staff member there or a postdoc or?
I'm an assistant scientist.
Yeah. Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah. In what area?
I work in medical isotopes.
Oh, okay.
So I work on the Brookhaven Linux isotope producer. We have a research side and a production side. So yeah, I'm a radiochemist. I work on the development of like generator systems for isotope production.
And are you organizing this whole week? Have you been?
There's a team of us.
A whole team, okay.
Yeah, there's several of us that have been working. Here's Charles, one of our lead organizers.
Hi, Charles.
Yeah.
Hi, how's it going?
There's some background thumping. Is that? Oh, there it stopped.
Okay, maybe that was me. I got too excited.
And tell me, you're Stacy. Is that?
I'm Vanessa.
Vanessa. Okay, sorry. It's just that your name isn't on there, and I'm so used to it now that I'm like she's black in physics. Yeah. That I know. I'm just going, Charles. So are you going to ask us these questions that you sent, or are you going to wait for what's the plan?
Yeah. So I think I want to ask everybody to give like a brief intro, like some brief words about who they are, and I guess the first question in the list. Like take a moment to describe your journey.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to also ask what drives everyone to continue on their road through academia, and then hopefully that starts to generate questions. If it doesn't, I'll start going through some of the other ones.
Great, perfect, thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm just looking at the questions right now, so getting short answers, so I don't have to be like, I don't know. Who else is on the
panel? So Ayana Arce, she's on the panel. Candace Harris from Lawrence Livermore, and Zori Paul, who is a PhD student, who is an expert in mental health.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. Hi, Zori. How's it going?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So yeah, Zori, since we still have a few minutes regarding ordering of questions and stuff like that, I wanted to have everybody, all the panelists, to describe their journey to their current position. So it's the first question in that list, basically part of the intro, and also just say a bit about who you are. And then I also wanted to ask everybody to talk about what drives them to continue on this road through academia. And then we'll see if we have many questions from the audience at that point. If not, then I'll keep on going through the list of questions.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I definitely looked through the questions beforehand. And I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to be here.
Great.
Hi, Zori. My name's Vanessa. I just want to ask you real quick, are you okay with us recording this webinar? Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking though.
Hi, Zori. I'm Nadya.
Hi.
Hi, good to meet you.
Hi, Ayana. How's it going?
Hi, how are you? It's going
Good,
fine.
good. Great to see
Ayana.
you.
Hi, Nadya. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. How you doing?
Doing all right. You?
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly.
I think my answers to this are evolving as a year ago. At first, it was like, I'm doing good or I'm doing fine. And then I'm doing okay. And I'm like, I'm hanging in.
Right. Well, this is
Pretty soon it's going to be, I'm here.
Yeah.
Here I am. It's a challenge, but you know.
Yeah.
So as far as ordering of questions go, Ayana, I wanted to have everybody just say some brief statements about who they are and to take a moment, as the questions say, to describe their journey to their current position. And then the next question was going to be what drives you to continue on this road through academia. And then hopefully that starts generating questions for people from the audience. And then, if things are kind of slow, I'll just start going through the list of questions more.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
Hi, Charles.
Hi, Candace.
Hi.
Nice to meet you too.
Candace.
Nice to meet everybody. Who is I see Black in physics, but I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
You're muted.
We can't hear you.
Vanessa.
Oh, I am?
Hi. No, I am muted. I was muted.
Oh.
Hi. Sorry. I'm Vanessa Sanders. I'm one of the organizers. I'm working tech, so I'm in the Black in Physics Zoom. So.
All right. Nice
While I have you, Candace and Ayana, are you both okay with us recording the panel today?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Great. And Candace, did you hear the last thing I said about the first? Okay, so no problem. So yeah, the very first thing I wanted to do was to have you all just give some brief statements about who you are, and to take a moment to describe your journey to your current position. And then the next question was going to be, what drives you to continue on your current path? And so hopefully then questions start coming in from the audience. If they don't, then I'll start going through the rest of the questions. But I think that'll start getting questions flowing. Yeah, so that's it. I think we're ready, Vanessa, whenever you are. Do you see attendees waiting?
Where do I see that?
So if you click participants, you should see panelists on the left and attendees on the right.
Okay. I don't see anyone waiting.
Just us.
I wonder if that's because we're in the practice set.
I think that's what Eileen was saying, that it doesn't, the attendees can't join until I start.
Right. Okay, I thought maybe you'd be able to see them, but I think we're ready to start if everybody's ready.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Good luck, everyone.
Thanks.
See people trickling in. just, I guess, wait for a few minutes as people trickle in.
Let me grab my phone real quick.
So do we not see the videos of the attendees, of the participants?
No, you can
Oh.
only see the panelists.
I see, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And but they see us.
They see us right now. We are live, and yep.
Just kidding. Okay. And are people going to use the chat room, or do they raise hands, or you just moderate the questions?
So a little bit of everything, I think. It would be great if people primarily use the Q&A for chat. So I'll be looking at the Q&A. We're also streaming live on Twitch, and we have someone that's looking for questions there. Yeah. So. Maybe I'll wait for one more minute, and then we'll get started. And while we're waiting, everybody, yes, as you just see in the chat, there's a link to a survey. So if everybody attending could take a minute to fill out this survey, that would be really awesome. Okay, I think it's time to get started. So everyone, thank you so much for coming to another one of our very, very good, very exciting Black in Physics Week events. Today is the panel discussion on remaining confident on the road to tenure. So this is a panel discussion for everyone, but specifically today, we're going to hear about how all of these physicists and our mental health expert, Zori, thank you for being here, have remained confident, or the ways that they, address mental health, the ways that they take care of themselves on the very difficult path that academia can be, or if you're not in academia, say you're a physicist in industry, in government, like Candace, how you take care of yourself and how you keep pushing. So thank you to all the panelists for being here. I'm really excited about this event. As you can see, attendees, we have lots of really great people that have very different experiences to speak to. So I hope that you will ask lots of questions today. This is an excellent opportunity to learn so much. So please take advantage of that. So first, we're going to do some intros. So we're going to have the panelists introduce themselves. And I will call you out if you don't mind. So if we could start with Professor Mason, Nadya Mason. Could you tell us a bit about who you are and a bit about the journey to your current position?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me to this panel. I think it's great, first of all, and the whole Black in Physics Week is amazing. So thanks you guys for organizing this. Okay, so I'm Nadya Mason. I'm a professor of physics, a full professor at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I've been here for about 15 years. I also direct the Illinois Materials Research Science and Engineering Center, which is a $16 million NSF center. I did my undergraduate at Harvard in physics, a graduate school at Stanford. And I felt like I had a very weak physics background coming out of high school, but in college, I had a bunch of summer internships, which are what convinced me to want to do physics research, especially an internship at Bell Labs, several of these at Bell Labs in condensed matter physics convinced me to go into that area of physics. So physics of materials and stuff, tabletop experiments. After graduate school, I considered non-academic research. I considered going back to industry. I even considered other fields like medical school or law school. I still think I would have been a good lawyer because I like to argue. But I decided that I like physics enough to want to try it and to see where it took me. And well, I've been here for 15 years now, so obviously I still like it, and it took me somewhere where I think is really good. And I'll be happy to answer any further questions you guys have.
Great. Candace, would you mind going next?
Hi, my name is Candace, and my relationship with Lawrence Livermore Lab started when I was a fifth-year senior at Spelman College. I was in the physics department there and wanted to be an engineer at the time. I was participating in the dual degree engineering program at Spelman, and it just didn't work out for me. So I ended up majoring in physics because all those engineering courses lead up to that anyway. And I had applied for a summer undergraduate leadership institute at Lawrence Livermore. I was going to be an intern after graduating from Spelman, but then I ended up going to UMass to be a participant in their summer summer program for undergraduate research. And they had somewhat of a bridge program that led me into graduate school at UMass. So while I was at UMass, I was working on a collaboration with Thomas Jefferson National Lab in Newport News, Virginia. Had an interesting story at UMass. I love people to ask, but I ended up leaving with my master's. I'm a native of California, so I moved back home to the Bay Area. I was unemployed for a little bit, and it's just by the grace of God that I had got an internship with Lawrence Livermore again as a master's student. Got to do research with someone that used to work at Bell Labs, Nadya Ebo Matthews. You might know him because he's in condensed matter. I know
him very well. Ebo's fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah.
So he was my mentor, my research advisor. He encouraged me to go back to graduate school for my PhD. So I went back to graduate school for my PhD at Florida A&M University, kept my ties with Lawrence Livermore the best way I could. I kept, trying to see if I could work on some experiments. I asked Dr. Ebo if you can send me some samples that I can shoot with the laser here, whatever I needed to do to get back to the lab. So I have some incredible mentors, and one of my mentors, she was a graduate student, a previous graduate student in the same research group that I was in at Florida A&M. She was an NSA fellow. So she suggested I apply for an NSA fellowship, which I did, and I made my appointment at Lawrence Livermore. So this is after I graduated from FAMU. I started immediately as an NSA postdoc at Lawrence Livermore, got to do research in a completely different group, and they ended up offering me a postdoc position. I also applied for a staff position, for which I got, and that's how I'm at Lawrence Livermore on staff. And it hasn't even been a full year yet, but my relationship with Lawrence Livermore goes back to 2009. So there you go. Charles,
Yes, thank you very much, Candace. Zori, would you mind going next?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Zori Paul. I'm a licensed mental health counselor and a current doctoral candidate at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. And I guess I'm lucky because from I think I was 8 years old, I knew I wanted to be in mental health. I didn't know the pathway. I didn't know exactly how that would look, but I knew that I wanted to help people with mental health. I wanted to help break the stigma of mental health in the Black community. So I went to college at the University of Chicago, got a majored in comparative human development, then took a gap year, worked in education policy for a year because as the daughter of a STEM teacher, I was like, maybe I want to do something education, but maybe I don't want to be a teacher. No, I don't want to be a teacher. So that's how I spent a year working in education policy, something that I think is really important, and it has still been really helpful in my work now as a mental health professional, but really working with clients one-on-one in groups, doing research has really been something that I've learned recently is really my passion. So I went to Northwestern, got my master's in counseling from there, and now currently I'm working on my doctoral degree in counselor ed and supervision. Thanks. So yeah, I'm not a physicist, but like I said, my mom's a STEM STEM teacher in STEM education. And I know that the STEM fields are super important. And I think what we're realizing, especially this year, in the year of whatever 2020 is, whatever craziness that's brought upon, that mental health is super important for everyone, but especially the Black community. And if there's one positive thing that's come out of 2020 is Black people starting to realize the importance of mental health, starting to realize the importance of self-care. I've definitely seen an increase in the amount of people seeking therapy and the amount of Black and brown people who are willing to try it out. And even though it's unfortunate that it had to happen in these situations, I really am super excited for our community that they're realizing like this is really a really important part of our wellness, of a really important part of just everything that we're doing to make sure that our mental health, that we have the tools for our mental health. So that's a little bit about me. Again, I'm really appreciative to be part of this panel and be part of talking with all these really wonderful people. And I hope that I can provide a little bit of mental health insight today.
Great, thank you. And Ayana, could you please finish off?
Sure. So I'm Ayana Arce, and I'm an associate professor at Duke University. I'm also a member of the ATLAS collaboration, which is one of the experiments at the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. I'm studying proton collisions, especially jets, which are just very messy signatures of interacting particles, hopefully some particles that we don't have names for yet. And I'm here, I think I'm here also because I am the daughter and the granddaughter of academics. So I really grew up very used to the university setting, albeit from the point of view of a humanist. But I was always very interested in science and in physics, and I actually knew that I probably wanted to do particle physics before I even graduated high school. I will say that I didn't expect at first that I was going to be an experimental physicist because unlike a lot of my colleagues, I wasn't really much of a tinkerer. I didn't like to play with tools. But as an undergraduate, I did like labs quite a bit. And I also didn't do quite as well in math classes as I'd hoped to. And I found that I really did love programming and dealing with simulating systems. So I did spend quite some time trying to learn to be a real experimentalist, but that never really clicked. I still mostly focus on doing simulations of our experiments. I'd say my professional path has been really very completely linear, no gap years, no moments when I thought about doing anything different, up until the point that I got my faculty position at Duke. I went to graduate school at Harvard University, and then I did a postdoc for 3 years at Lawrence Berkeley Lab. I should say that along that path, people at Bell Labs also did try to convince me to be a tabletop experimentalist. I had a fellowship from Bell Labs, and they didn't think that particle physics was a very good idea, but I had my mindset on it, so I continued. And eventually I was hired as a target of opportunity hire at Duke University. And while I, as junior faculty at Duke, it was as, it was the junior faculty experience that I think a lot of people are familiar with. It was kind of awful. I couldn't please my students. I was trying to write grants all the time and I wasn't getting them. I felt completely scattered. I was also commuting to Puerto Rico for family reasons. And so the process of working towards tenure just felt like it was completely out of my hands. I was really dreading putting together my tenure package. But actually partly because I was commuting to Puerto Rico for family reasons, I made new contacts with different communities and things just came together in a very strange way. For complicated reasons, I had to put together my tenure package in about 2 weeks, but I did. That was great. It was like ripping a Band-Aid off. And then since then, I've been in this position, taking on more university administrative responsibilities, et cetera, but continuing in my work with the ATLAS collaboration.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the panelists for that. Okay, so our first question, what drives you all to continue on your road through academia, or what drove you to continue through academia in the past, or what drives you to continue on your road as a, professional scientist, say in government, for Candace? Let's see, can we start with Nadya?
Yeah, sure. So let me start by saying that I don't find academia to be, I think as Ayana said, it's just not always easy. It's something that is, it's continuously challenging. And to me, that's both the good and the bad of it. It's a continuous intellectual, social, emotional challenge. And yet I'm someone who doesn't like being bored. I like to be thinking, I like to be moving all the time. And so for me, that's actually turns out to be a really good environment in some ways. So in terms of continuing on my road to academia, really it's the interest in science. You know, as I mentioned, when I left graduate school, I considered other things in other fields, but I really was interested in the topics and I wanted to see how much I could learn about them. For me, that's just been the biggest motivating factor, not getting to some position and not having some level of recognition, but really just understanding some topic really well. So that was really motivating to me to just want to become an academic, to just come up with my own research topics and study them in great detail. Beyond that, I just, you know, having been an academic for many years, I really like the variety of the job. We're not just sitting in our labs all the time by ourselves. We have students that we mentor, we teach. We travel a lot. We have speaking opportunities. I enjoy this variety. Every day I do something different. Every week it's something different. I get to hone different skills. And again, this is just sort of intellectually engaging, having all these different opportunities. There's also opportunities for leadership in the field and within the discipline. As I mentioned, I lead a big materials research center. I've been in leadership within the American Physical Society, for example, and I enjoy those opportunities while I can also maintain something of my lab. And finally, I'll say that, you know, being one of the very few Black women in the field has also been very motivating to me. When I was finishing graduate school, I thought, you know, I could be a lawyer and it would probably be easier for me in some sense, right? It's just intellectually not always the full challenge of being an academic. But I think that it's important to have role models in the field. And I relish the opportunity of being a role model, of being a mentor to others, of realizing that being one of the few is both difficult, but also provides an opportunity to make more of a difference. And to me, that's always been really important. And I try to remember that all the time when things do get hard, that they're hard because it comes hand in hand with having an opportunity to make a difference. And that's been really important.
Great, thank you. Candace?
I would say for me, definitely my interest in science as well. I am also a first generation to go to college. My family, my mother in particular, she was very strict, and well, actually both my parents are very strict about my education. I went to one of the Bay Area's best private high schools, college prep schools out here. And as far as being the token Black girl, I know all about that. And I was surrounded by a lot of, you say, sons and daughters of millionaires. I was going to high school with them. So I attached myself to them and started asking, you know, what do your parents do? And they would tell me, well, my dad's a doctor, my mom's a nurse, you know, my dad sells real estate. And so I was just like, well, you know, one of my friends lived directly under MC Hammer's house. And so at the time, that was just like, oh, I need to make some money. So maybe I should become a doctor. And that's really what started that. So I'm being honest. Like I love physics, I do, but I definitely wanted to be a member of my family who could generate generational wealth. And the fact that I don't see anybody that looks like me still at the lab makes me want to increase that number anyway. So that's one reason why I'm here. We are hiring, so let me know. But yeah.
Thank you. Zori?
I mean, since we're being honest, so not that many people know, but in the counseling field, multiculturalism is really highlighted and promoted. Do we actually see it though? That's a totally different thing. And I think a lot of how I got to where I'm now is just being frustrated, really frustrated with academia and with the lack of diversity, the lack of appropriate and actually helpful mentorship for students of color, especially in counseling. I had a really great experience at Northwestern, but it was still taught from a very white lens, a white Western lens. And, anything else was kind of like an elective class. So that was really frustrating because for ACA, the American Counseling Association, and also CACREP, which is the accreditation board for most counseling programs, it always talks about multiculturalism and how multicultural should be in the syllabus, it should be in our research, it should be in our work with clients. And yet, the pressure of incorporating multiculturalism is different for the students or counselors of color versus some of our non-Black, white colleagues. Like I'm expected as a Black woman to be multiculturally competent. I'm expected as a Black woman to be able to talk to Black and brown clients and to just get it. And I do try really hard to do that, but there's not that many Black and brown counselors in the field in general. And people need help. People need mental health help. So part of the reason why I'm on my journey in academia is to be a professor, a faculty member who is teaching this next generation of counselors, despite no matter what your gender, your race, your ethnicity is, you need to be competent in working with any type of client. And you don't get a pass just because you're white. You don't get a pass just because you're not part of that community. If you're in this field, yes, there are definitely going to be like certain clients, certain populations that you feel called to, but one of the things in counseling is if you get a client and they're like, no, I want to work with you, you're kind of required or ethically required to keep working with them unless they are like, no, can you like send me to another therapist who is better equipped with this? Essentially my frustration drives me, a little bit of pettiness, people telling me like, no, you can't do that. You can't do research, or you shouldn't do research on just predominantly people of color or Black populations. Like, what is that? So like the more people tell me I can't do something, the more I want to do something. Is that the healthiest thing in terms of mental health? Debatable. I will admit, a little bit of the pot calling the kettle black, but it's the truth. And hopefully, I hope that one day, no matter who you are, you're giving your clients the mental health tools and counseling that they need. So that's me.
Great, thank you. Ayana?
Yeah, I was actually going to say at first that I think for me, drive is not the right word until Zori made her comment about being a little bit perverse, because I think maybe I am also driven a lot by a sort of perversity. When people think I don't belong in a room, then I just want to be there more. But circling back to what really sort of gives me the day-to-day satisfaction in this path, I think it's more along the lines of what Nadya said, that there's really infinite scope to improve in academia. I mean, and in all fronts, I can become a better scientist. I can become a more knowledgeable physicist. I can become a better mentor. I can become a better teacher with more interesting lectures. And so all of those frontiers for me are interesting because they're spaces that I like to inhabit. And so it's, I am just really lucky to have a job where that's my challenge. And when I'm focusing internally and not paying too much attention to what others are saying, I can pick among those challenges and say, this is what I'm going to work on this week, this month. And that freedom to sort of say, this is where I'm going. I'm going to follow this ideal to the end, whether it works out or not. That's just, it's a huge luxury. It's a real blessing.
Awesome, thank you. So quick reminder for all the attendees, please use the Q&A function to ask questions if you have them. Okay, so next question actually, and maybe I will point to you first, Zori. You mentioned this idea of like a white Western lens of mental health. Could you elaborate more on that, more on what you mean about that? And how can people begin to lean into decolonizing mental health? And maybe for the physical scientists on the call, what would it look like to decolonize the physics spaces that we're in? But I can reiterate that in a second. Zori?
Yeah. So I guess part of what I mean is that, really thinking about like, what do we mean about mental health? And I think probably the easiest example that I can give is like the talk about self-care. There's this idea that self-care is taking long bubble baths, getting a manicure, getting a pedicure. And not to say that, you can't do that for self-care, but really thinking about sometimes what I've been thinking about a lot is like what we as a Black community need for self-care. And some of that is taking the time to yourself. Some of that is, really focusing on yourself, but like, how do we do that? And though I truly believe that everyone should have access to therapy and everyone should at least experience good therapy in their lives, there are definitely, there's no one way really to do therapy. A lot of people think that it's just you laying on a bed, or not a bed, but like a couch, and some old person going, yes, I see. Tell me more about your mother. But I think you can definitely, mold therapy to the client and to their needs and to their cultural needs. So, we have the DSM, which is full of diagnoses that you can give a person. Sometimes I don't even need to do that in my day-to-day life because a lot of my clients are just dealing with anxiety and depression, which doesn't necessarily need to be diagnosed unless for insurance reasons. But a lot of those things, it doesn't really talk about like the cultural aspects, like what is causing those things. So yeah, I might have a client who's depressed, but why are they depressed? Is it the systemic racism that's happening in their job in academia? Or, is it because of, chemicals in the brain? Or is it both? A lot of it is, I think a lot of times we, white mental health, or I won't say white, Western mental health is just like diagnose, give medication, really kind of not really delving deep into like the cultural aspects and some of the injustices that Black and Brown people face. So I think one way that you could do, one simple way that I do is, especially with some of my Black clients, is just, connecting what's going on in their life with things that they can easily relate to. So sometimes I do movies I know that they watch. Like I might bring up Friday, I might bring up, just like whatever media reference that I know that they'll connect to. And sometimes that can be really helpful in getting across like mental health ideas, mental health ways of thinking. Sometimes it's just about me not being so professional. I'm always ethical, but I think a lot of my clients think that coming in, I'm going to be really stiff, I'm going to be a robot, but like showing that like, hey, I can, I know what you're talking about. Like I relate, like this is my culture too. And having that like self-disclosure, that cultural self-disclosure can be really helpful in turning it from being just this like distance, westernized way of doing mental health to a more culturally molded way of doing mental health that really kind of heals the client on like in terms of their soul, like just knowing that you can connect with your counselor, that that they're not just someone that's judging you, but someone who can relate to you and relate to what you're going to. So I think that's one way that you can really make mental health less westernized. There's definitely other ways as well, other different theories of counseling and of mental health that you can go about. But I think one way is just really thinking about who your client is and what level of power that you're bringing into based off of your own identities. So oftentimes, the only level of power that I'm bringing into the room is because I'm this mental health professional with my client. Sometimes in the room, I have a sense of power because I'm the mental health professional, but outside the room with, if I was in with my client with any other situation, they would be in the position of power. So a lot of it is just like really trying to equalize things to a certain extent. And really allow the client to be the expert in their own mental health. I think a lot of times Western thinking is a lot of this hierarchical way of thinking, like you're the expert, you know everything, tell me what to do, tell me, like, give me these steps so I can just walk out and be better. But a lot of times is, you know, just really delving deep, like just really having this weird but also still a relationship with your client. Obviously, I'm not telling all my clients all my secrets, all of my issues, but I'm still bringing my empathy, still bringing the sense of care to the session room with my clients that sometimes I don't think we get in our society. I think a lot of it is just like, how can we succeed? How can we, you know, be better, do better, get from point A to point B, and not a lot of time of just like thinking about the journey and thinking about the process. So I hope that answered your question.
No, that was incredible. Thank you. So for the other panelists, if you could provide some of your views, I guess, on how we might be able to make the physics spaces that we're in more inclusive in a way that really promotes the mental health and well-being of, say, Black physicists, or in these different spaces, that would be great. Did anyone want to hop in and take a shot at that? Nadya, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I can make a comment. I mean, you know, there's two sides to this. One is us taking care of ourselves, which is absolutely necessary, and the other is changing the culture and climate of physics. And I tend to separate these two things, right? They both affect our mental health directly, but we can't always, you know, we can work to try to change other people, but we also have to separately work to try to make ourselves more complete and more whole within the spaces that we're in. Otherwise, we can't function even at the same time as we're trying to change others, right? So my thoughts on this are one, you know, in terms of making, you know, I think you talked about decolonizing the physics departments, right? In terms of making the departments a place where we survive better, which is better for us. You know, I think for a lot of us, what physics is a hierarchical, you know, field. It's driven by ego, and it's sort of intellectually structured, right? That the top dogs are the ones who are the smartest, the best, get the most grants, whatever else. And then, you know, and if you can't, it goes down. I think many of us realized this starting from graduate school. It was structured into who can do the problem sets fastest and who couldn't, right? As you get to be faculty, it's who has the most grants or the most papers out and who doesn't. It's very hierarchical in that sense. And people will, you know, it runs on some level of respect, right? And I think that what most of us miss a lot of the time is that respect, right? Are we being respected as scientists? Are we being respected as individuals? Are we being respected as Black people or as women, right? And I think that's what's missing. And for people in the field, they may say, oh, well, you're not here or there on this hierarchical structure, but that structure is false, right? It's based on, you know, this is what you're saying, the colonization of physics. I think it's that structure there is what people use to keep others down. They make excuses as to why you're not at the top of the structure and why they're not respecting you. And so I think this whole structure needs to be reframed in terms of respecting the work and value of individuals, no matter what. And if that were changed in physics, I think that many of us would find a climate that was vastly improved. And people wouldn't have an excuse anymore to look at me, to look at Candace and say, well, I don't know where you fit in, right? And because we get that no matter what, no matter how many papers we produce and no matter what we do, there's this hierarchical sense that people artificially will place us at the bottom. And so I think it's a matter of training people to respect others in the field, and that will go a long way. So that's the one side of it. The other side is that, for me personally, I can't make everyone respect me. I can't make everyone appreciate the work I do. So I have to figure out how to respect myself and to find that respect and that support from others around me. So, I find people in my department who I can talk to individually about things. I have a group of Black women, 3 of them who I meet with monthly now as a senior faculty, and we meet every month. They're all senior faculty, and not in different fields, outside of physics, but in academia. And we just talk about stuff. These are my support networks, and these are the people who keep me going and remind me of, my value, we respect each other, and we give ourselves that space to carry forward even in the environment that we're in. I'll leave it there. There's so much more to say, but I'll let other people give their thoughts.
Great. Did anyone else want to hop in?
I just wanted, oh, sorry, go ahead. I unmuted first. Sorry, Ayana. I just wanted to, piggyback on what Nadya, I hope I'm saying your name right, Nadya was saying about just respecting each other's work. And I think, the hierarchy is real. We've all taken physics courses where we learn laws from European white men, some European white women, Curry, I think that's about it. Maybe I'm missing one, the other one. But yeah, I think that's one of the pressures that we all face. Like, we don't see a lot of African culture in physics. And if this session was a little bit longer, we could talk more about why that's true. But, we have to have a better sense of our history, and knowing that, we were some of the pioneers of a lot of this physics that's going on now. I was watching this show on Prime Video called Hunters. I don't know if anybody watches that, but I've been side-eyeing. It's about the history of, it talks about the Holocaust. It talks about, it piggybacks off of World War II and, America sneaking in Nazi Germans to work on our experiments. And so, of course, I go back to lab and I'm side-eyeing everybody there. I shouldn't be, but it's just interesting, knowing about our history. And I think that's one of the ways that I fix that, and definitely publishing, so more people can see. And if you can use your full name on a publication, I've identified, publishers or authors that, kind of have a similar last name as mine. Like, I wonder if, they're Black. Like, let me read their work. See, because I feel like we don't get enough attention that way. So that's one of my solutions.
Yeah, I think Candace really said the main thing I was going to bring up. When I think about, my whole physics education, the things that I was never good at were remembering the names of who did what, because it was just sort of painful to me to just keep seeing these little tiny snapshots, black and white, of white men who did X, Y, and Z. So I'd remember the equation, but I would forget the name, because it was just not supportive of the way that I wanted to think about the science that I was learning. And this just persists and infests. And the idea of the sort of cults around personalities in physics that still exist today, these ideas of these genius figures and their, single-minded focus on physics and nothing else, not on family, not on other kinds of relationships. This is a mythology, and it's a mythology that is really damaging to someone who's trying to live a whole life, basically any human being, but probably more difficult for women, more difficult for people of color. And so I think this is one of the things that we can change simply about the culture. Getting more people on our faculty apparently is very hard. Changing, the way that things are recognized, apparently very hard. But just shifting away from this cult of personality, it shouldn't be that difficult, but it's really reinforced in almost every introductory physics classroom you walk into.
All incredible points. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we have a good question from the audience in the Q&A. But before I ask that, I wanted to ask one more question about imposter syndrome, right? So this is something that we think about a lot, we've talked about a lot, but it persists as an issue. And so I want to talk about it in this space. Could you define imposter syndrome, and could you tell us a bit about how you combat it, how you've done that? Let's see, who should go first? Maybe Zori, can we start with you?
I was like, it's probably gonna be me. So I think one, the short definition of imposter syndrome that you can give it is like intellectual self-doubt. It's, am I smart enough? So I think a lot of times we think of imposter syndrome as a self thing. So like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm not smart enough. I don't deserve to be here. And things that on the surface we would easily represent. So like we would think it's like, oh, it's because I have a lack of self-confidence or a lack of self-esteem, may play into it. And sometimes depending on like the families or the communities that we grew up, if there was a big emphasis on achievement, that can also play into imposter syndrome moving forward in life. And I think a lot of times we like really suffer quietly with imposter syndrome. I think that's another key point of imposter syndrome, that like you don't really tell other people about it. You don't really tell other people that you're struggling with these self-doubts. And when you don't tell anyone, then everyone is thinking that like, oh, no one else feels this way. And it just continues like this bigger social cycle of like everyone thinking that everyone else is better than them, that like, that you're a fraud and everyone else is like not. But in the end, we're all thinking that. But, as I said before, as a counselor, I always think of like, on the larger scale, where is this like stemming from? So I think one way that I don't hear often enough about imposter syndrome is like the systemic level of it. And I think a lot of times we're feeling imposter syndrome, not because we're not capable, not because we're not smart enough, not because, we somehow trick the system. I think it's a lot because we're not as Black and Brown academics, as Black women, we're not given the same resources, the same, mentorship, all those things that some of our non-Black colleagues are given. We've already kind of talked about a lot on Twitter and through various medias with our friends that academia is really racist. We're starting a marathon. I think someone has said this earlier. We're starting a marathon where actually no one has said. I was talking to another co-founder of Black and Mental Health, Manny. He was saying we're running a marathon where there's no one cheering us on. Sometimes there's people who are throwing rocks at us. And, when you have that enough, you think like, oh, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe I'm not good enough, because if I was good enough, I would have people cheering me on. But I think because oftentimes we're often the only Black person of color, woman in our fields, that can make it very easy for us to think like, maybe it's a me thing, maybe it's my issue, and not realize that this is a systemic issue. This is a everyone issue, and that to really fight back imposter syndrome on an actual meaning and lasting level is to realize that there needs to be something that needs to change in academia. And oftentimes there's actually like been research that's shown that the people who are the most commonly affected by imposter syndrome are the ones who are often trying to make change happen in the system. So the people who are like, no, we actually do need to research more people of color in our research. We shouldn't just assume that that this white population speaks for everyone, or we need to have more mentorship in academia for our Black and Brown students. it's usually those people who are trying to make some change, trying to do something outside of the norm, who are the most impacted by imposter syndrome. So it makes sense that Black students, Black professors, Black academics in general feel this way, are often feeling like imposters. So I guess in terms of how I personally combat it, it may seem really simple, easier said than done, but, just recognizing my own expertise. When me and the other folks in Black and Mental Health were trying to figure out who could do this panel, I was really nervous because I was just like, oh, there's a lot more people in our board, on our community, who have been doing mental health a lot longer, who have a lot more articles out, who actually have PhD after their names. But, realizing that I am a mental health expert, I do have the expertise, and really changing how I think of things, instead of saying I can't do things, say, this is really hard, but I'm really proud of myself for doing this hard thing. I think that can really help us on the individual level. And then things like Black in Mental Health and Black in Physics are another great opportunity to, one, come together and hear experiences from other people in similar fields with similar experiences, and realize, oh, this isn't just a me thing. Having that communication that we're not having, communication can do wonders, really. And realizing, like, okay, this isn't just a me thing, and having that support to either move forward, having that support either for mentorship, or either having that support for policy or academic, larger scale change, I think is really important. So it's great that, we're having all these Black and X weeks, because I think there's really been a shift in how a lot of Black academics have been seeing themselves in their respective fields. So I think just even doing things like this is one way that we fight against imposter syndrome.
Great, thank you very much. So for the other panelists, if you can tell us about how you combat imposter syndrome, that would be awesome. Would anyone like to, Ayana, thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Ayana.
So yeah, I'd say this is a journey for me. I think it's a journey for most people. But what I've noticed about imposter syndrome, which my personal experience with it, that I think just really sort of came clear to me in the past few years, is that for me, it's not just this idea that, oh, everyone here is more skilled than me, they belong here, I don't belong here. There's also a sense that there is something to be revealed, like there's some secret about me that they don't know, like I will be found out as something. And usually I realize that comes about because I actually do hide some things about myself in my professional life. If I go into a faculty meeting, I keep my mouth shut a lot when my opinions diverge from what I think the rest of my colleagues want to hear. And so that's something that I'm trying to change. I'm trying to sort of stop editing myself, so that if I have a conversation with a colleague where I am being my real self, it's not a surprise, or I'm not worried, oh, now they know I think that, et cetera, et cetera. Because I think there's two parts to imposter syndrome. One is just, I'm inferior and nobody knows it. But the other is sort of the fear that someone might find that out. And so for that second half, I think, it's sometimes a cost to be your authentic self as much as possible in academic spaces. But I am trying to do that. I'm trying to do it with the students that I mentor, especially because for them, I think seeing someone who is at the moment a role model, being as authentic as possible, can sort of help to sort of liberate them from the idea that there is one norm that they have to fit into when they're in an academic space.
Thank you. Candace, I think you wanted to hop in.
I was going to say, I guess one way I battled and won with imposter syndrome was, I hate to, keep plugging in my past college institutions, but I'm a product of 2 historically Black colleges. And I remember being in high school, and there were a lot of different clubs that I could have been a part of, but since I was a Black girl, I was one of the presidents of BSU, or AAA at the time. And, that's just where I fell into. But when I got to Spelman, I met other Black women who pretty much had the same story. And I was like, well, what do you really like to do? Oh, I'm actually good at math. So, I'm going to major in math. Or, oh, I'm good at physics. So I'm going to major in physics. Like, oh, they didn't know I want to be an engineer. So let me go here. So I think being around that network where you're around other people that look like you that are in STEM fields definitely helps. And I would say to any Black woman that's working in a national lab or that's at a PWI, I would find your sisters. That is encouraging. Like, get that network together. Do not be the only Black girl in a sea full of white men and white women. I personally took my lunches away from my lab employees, away from my coworkers. Where are my Black women at? Where are my Black men at? Like, I need a break. And I need to be around some familiar faces. Like, that's one way to battle with that, And I have to plug, Kamala Harris is also the product of the HBCU, Howard. And, when I was watching her debate, I just felt the confidence of, that's a product going to HBCU. Like, it's a different story. I went to PWI as well. And I feel like I suffered there a lot. Like, there were groups of people that were very tight. They would study together, and they all looked alike. So, trying to infiltrate that group, that was a lot. But sometimes I had to infiltrate the group in order to get the grades that I got. So, that's just one way. Definitely, Jessica, she put it in caps. Find your sisters, for sure.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I totally agree with what's been said so far. I just wanted to add that in addition, on a day-to-day basis, I really try to think continuously of my own priorities. Like, why am I doing this? What do I want out of this? So in a sense, by focusing on myself and rather than what other people are thinking, it redirects this whole question. It's not about what others are thinking of me. It's not about whether I belong, but it's about what do I want, right? So the minute I start thinking like, oh, should I really be here? I try to change it. Why am I here? Am I trying to understand the science, right? Maybe that could be a goal, right? I'm here because I want to get to this answer, no matter how long it takes me, no matter what goes on, I'm trying to get to this answer. And if I get there, then I'm good, right? Or it could be, I want to mentor someone. I want to get to this point so I can have some influence on the field and do this thing. That's my goal. And it doesn't matter what else anyone else thinks about it. That's for me. So I just find this continuously reassessment of what are my priorities? Why am I doing this? And for me, that helps, push things along because you kind of dismiss other people along the way by doing that.
Great, thank you. So let me hop. So we started a few minutes late, so I'm gonna extend the session by a few minutes. Hope no one minds. I do want to ask the question in the Q&A though. So from someone in the audience, how do you choose a counselor or therapist? This is for people who are engaging in therapy. And as Zori let us know, we should definitely be considering doing so if we haven't already started. How do you choose a counselor or therapist, beginning with an internet search? If you don't have a clue how to begin or screen, what questions do you recommend asking before and during the first meeting to assess the suitability of the fit?
Yeah, I think one question that you should ask yourself first is, do you want your counselor to be someone of the same race or ethnicity? Do you want your counselor to be someone of the same gender? All those things. And then especially in terms of the Black community, if you do realize that you want a Black counselor, there are definitely internet directories like Black Therapist Network and Therapy for Black Girls, and I'm looking at them now, Black Therapists Rock, that all have directories for African American and Black counselors. So that's one way. I think also part of it is insurance. I mean, that's the thing. Finding out whether they take your insurance, finding out if they're a sliding scale, which means that depending on how much you're making, they tell you how much you could pay for. So some of that is usually less than what they usually charge. You can also go to universities. So like I said, I got my master's at Northwestern, and Northwestern has really reduced price counseling sessions for people because you're working with student counselors who are being supervised. So that's something else that you might want to consider. Like, are you okay with seeing a student? Are you okay with, working with someone who may look or have different experiences from you? And then once you do that, once you at least, make an initial call, one of the things that I would recommend especially is ask what is your multicultural experience, or what is your experience working with clients with X, Y, and Z identities? That can also be really helpful. And, if they're like, then obviously, that might not be someone that you want to work with. But if they give you an answer that you feel makes you just a little bit more comfortable about the therapeutic process, then I would suggest, at least going to them for at least a session, getting, the vibe of it. I always tell my clients that it usually takes about 3 sessions, sometimes more depending on the client, for a client to feel comfortable sharing things with me, because I am a stranger. So just realizing that you as a client have the power to be like, hey, I didn't really like how you did this. Can we not do that? And, if they're willing to work with you and collaborate with you like that, then that's usually a good sign of a good therapist, even if they don't have the same identities as you. If they're not, then you can just ask for a referral or go back to whatever site that you're using and find someone else. It's okay to, therapist shop. I actually encourage that for people who are looking for a therapist. It's a relationship. It's a different relationship, but it's a relationship. And if you're not vibing with your therapist, if you don't feel comfortable opening up yourself to your therapist, especially after, a handful of sessions, then maybe that's usually an indication that either you two need to have a conversation about that and be open and honest about that. I know that's really scary, but you're paying them, you're seeking their services. So you have that power, or just realize therapy with this person is not working, but that doesn't mean that therapy in general is not working. So I hope that answers whoever's question.
Great. So I have a final question. Did anyone else want to chime in on that at all from their personal experience? No? Okay. Yes, I have a final question before we wrap up. So several of you, I think all of you have importantly mentioned this idea of authenticity, being authentic, being your authentic self, sort of wherever you are, especially in the workplace. So I have a question on that topic from Vanessa Sanders, one of our co-organizers for Black in Physics. So she mentions that unfortunately, Black women are not always able to bring their authentic selves to the workplace. And I think this is also true for Black men. And because of this, they're not able to react genuinely when some adverse situation arises. That could be something in the workplace, or that can be some traumatic emotional experience, like seeing a Black person unjustly killed by police and then having to go to work and act like it didn't happen, especially when those around you seem to not know that it happened or not care about it. So if you all could talk about how you deal with those emotions, how do you handle that when having to go to work and do the things that you have to do? Did anyone want to take a stab at Candace, please?
I think I was very fortunate when most of the, that sounds bad, but when most of the, I guess at the height of the protest out here this past summer, I was debating on, if I should go back to work. And I'm in the center of downtown Oakland. It's quite Black out here, to say the least. And I remember one of my former supervisors, white woman at the lab, was just, checking in on me. Like, she was just like, you don't want to go to work if you don't, you don't have to. And I felt very, blessed to have that piece of knowing that, someone is conscious that stuff is going on with the Black community and this affects my work. And then, you know, one of my other former supervisors, Dr. Ebo Matthews, he's a Black man. He was just like, I'm not going to work on Friday, and you shouldn't either. I was like, okay. So, you know, I think being that I'm in the Bay Area, California, this is one of the homes of the Black Panther Party. I think I'm around a more conscious Black people, should I say, and they wouldn't allow for us to, you know, be at work when all of this was going on. So yeah, that's one way that I was able to just be my authentic self. You know, I didn't have to come to work and talk about it the next day. And even if I did, I don't feel like I would feel any type of way. Like, this is in the news. If you watch the news, you see what's going on. And how could that not affect who I am and the people that look like me? So, you know, I think that's, you know, and another thing is with authenticity is how I wear my hair. I recently wear my hair, like I change my hair all the time. I did these myself. This is not my real hair. So I always surprise people when I come to work. And it's so funny. It's always funny because they're just like, it's so pretty. Like, how did you, like, you know, it's, you know, how some like people are like that, you know, your hair just, no, it didn't grow. Like, I'll tell them, like, you know, I'll tell them how I did it, like, don't touch it. But, you know, I'll let them know, like, how I did it. But yeah, I think that's a part of being my authentic self. And then using Black colloquialisms like, you know, okay, like like when someone, you know, is getting, you know, an award or something. We had a director's award ceremony yesterday, and I was kind of in the chat, like, you know, there was like a D&I award for a few of my fellow colleagues, and, you know, I'm in the chat like writing A, you know, A with a whole bunch of Y's and E's at the end, versus like cheers and, you know, good job. Like, you know, I don't mind being the loud Black woman. I you know, I think that has came across as whatever it is. I just feel like it's popular, and that's who I am. So yeah.
I love what Candace said, and I second all of that. And I have my own hair stories, which is like, I used to always wear my hair pulled back because I thought it was more professional. And then one day, one of my friends whose daughter had hair like mine told me that her daughter never wore her hair out because she didn't want to make a scene. And I was like, oh, okay. And after that, I wore my hair down every day, almost, unless it's windy. But, you know, but it's one of these things that, you know, we're also representative, and being ourselves the best of our ability is important. I do want to say though that I think it, you know, there's always these lines, and it depends on what position we're in. You know, do we feel comfortable? Are we senior? You know, what are the ramifications of feeling like we can open ourselves up versus we want to just kind of fit in? You know, I've talked to graduate students who said that they just, you know, they don't feel comfortable talking out. They feel guilty about not talking out more. And I told them, look, your job is to do your science, find support, do the, you know, take care of yourself. There's no pressure to be anything other than what you want to do. If you want to hide what you want, if you just want to get by while you get your degree, you do that if that's what you need. You know, if you feel like you can speak out and do stuff, you do that too, but take that pressure off, right? It's hard enough without the pressure of feeling like you have to be one way or another way, right? Do whatever you need to do in the time that you can to get yourself where you need to be. And then as you get more senior, it gets a little easier, right? Because you're a little less, you know, it's a little more untouchable as you get up. So just take the pressure off, do what you need to do to take care of yourself, even in this context. That's what I think.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think that the Black girl healthcare stories are just, they're great. Mine that I keep remembering is that, you know, when I was at Fermilab, people thought there were two Black women of my age, height, and complexion. One who had really long braids, really long hair, and one who had short hair. I don't know how that happened. But it is definitely a question of seniority and where you feel comfortable. And even, you know, there are ways that I try to find ways to express my emotional self without saying, for example, this summer, what the heck? I can't, you know, I mean, I had words, but instead I would type an email, sorry, don't have the emotional bandwidth to deal with this right now. And that was the way I stepped back. So I hope people knew what I was talking about, but I just had to try to find some balance between my demure professional self and the person who wanted to throw my computer across the room. I mean, that's what you do, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with everything that everyone has said. And I think what has really helped me be like my most authentic self in my master's program and also in my doctoral program is just having my people, you know, we were talking earlier about like having like finding your sisters, finding your siblings, you know, keep it gender neutral. But, you know, I have multiple, you know, group chats. I have you know, my Black people in my doctoral program that we're always chatting each other, and especially now that classes are online, you know, we're texting each other during class, like, what did this person just say? And, you know, just having that affirmation has been like really helpful. And again, you know, having all these like different Black and X groups happening has also been really affirming, and like seeing like, yes, like all these great people, all these like beautiful, like Black and brown people doing like really amazing things. And, you know, still pushing through despite everything. I think that's been really affirming. So, and also help me to like be comfortable, because I think one of the biggest things that I've always struggled with is like being that angry Black woman, but like, am I really angry, or am I just saying things that make you uncomfortable? So lean into that affirmation from those people.
Great, thank you. Okay, so thank you everyone for staying the extra 7 minutes. Thank you to the panelists. This was really, really incredible. I think we've all gotten a lot from your different perspectives. If anybody from the attendees want to get connected with the panelists, please let us know. Send us an email at blackandphysics@gmail.com. We can definitely connect you. I think that's it. I'll just say that we have another really great event coming up in 53 minutes, the Ask a Scientist event. Everyone welcome, especially non-scientists who want people asking all kinds of questions about science. So yeah, I think we're finished here. Again, thank you to the panelists. This was great. Everyone have an excellent day. We'll see you later. Stay tuned for more Black and Physics events.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Nice meeting all you professors.
Good
And doctors, go ahead.
You too.
Awesome.